Greetings all, Trendane again. Welcome back to WoW-To, Section 2. If you missed Part 1, go ahead and click on the annotation at the top of the screen. It'll take you back. You can watch the first one, in which we discussed realm selection and the different realm types and character creation. Here, in Section 2, we are going to discuss the user interface and the various parts of it, as well as a couple of very small game options that correlate directly to it. Now, with the user interface, I like to break it down into 5 basic sections. You've got the big main one, which is the window in which you look into the game world. If you hold down the left mouse button, you can pan your camera back and forth. You can pitch it up and down so that you can turn your viewpoints around and everything. If you hold down the right mouse button instead, you do the same thing, but now you can see your character turns back and forth as well. Now, if you hold down both mouse buttons at the same time, then your character will begin to run forward and you can slide the mouse around to steer them. So that can be an easy way to move around and look at the game world like that. Put him back where he was. Now, that's pretty much the main window right there. Now down here you have something that is referred to as your action bar or your hot bar or your quick bar, depending upon whom you ask. As you advance through levels and whatnot and you gain more skills and spells, they will slowly populate these buttons down here. And of course you can click on them or hit the corresponding key on the keyboard. In the case of most of these on this thing, they range from 1 to the equals button right here. It's that whole row of numbers right across the top of the keyboard. As you can see, the only things here right now are the spell Wrath and the racial ability that the Tauren have called War Stomp. Now, at the end of this, there are these 2 arrows and this number 1, and this indicates which hotbar you're looking at. For example, you can hit the up arrow, it goes to number 2, and you can see that this particular action bar is empty. And you can go all the way up to 6, and then it loops back around. Now, if you don't feel like clicking on this, you can hold down the Shift key and hit 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 5, whatever, and you can jump directly to a given hotbar. But I'm also going to show you a trick that'll get you some more hotbars later on. Now, this is your character pane right here. Shows your little character portrait. If you click on this or hit C, and you notice that when you put your mouse over it, at the lower right corner it shows you a little explanation of what that particular piece of the user interface does and what the hotkey for it is. You can either hit C or click on that logo. This opens up the character pane, which shows you the name of your character, what kind of class character it is. You have the equipment manager, which allows you to very quickly swap out equipment loadouts. In this case, it doesn't really apply because we only have the one, really, and you can see all the gear that he's wearing is his novice robe, his novice pants, and he's carrying his bent staff. This arrow opens up a side panel like this that shows some of the more detailed numbers on resistances, strengths, how much damage you can do, yada yada yada, stuff like that. Down here you have different tabs, one of which is the character tab, which is this particular window, and there is the reputation tab, which shows all of the factions that you've currently encountered, which, since you're a member of the Horde in this case, you have all the different factions of the Horde. If you were an Alliance character, you'd have all the different factions of the Alliance, and this is your current standing with all of them. As you perform more and more quests for a given faction, your reputation with them increases. And as you meet more factions, this list gets longer and longer. So we'll go ahead and close that, and we will open up the spellbook. Now, your spellbook doesn't just list spells, it also lists various abilities, some that are active, some that are passive. What you have here is a lot of the racial abilities that the Tauren have, such as Cultivation, Endurance, Nature Resistance, and War Stomp. And then you can see some of the things that we don't have yet, because like at level 20, I will pick up Apprentice Riding, everybody does, and Journeyman Riding, Leather Specialization, and whatnot. On the second page, it shows all of the other stuff, and Mastery at level 80. On these other panels over here, however, these are specific to different classes. Now, since I'm currently playing a druid, there are 3 different classes of druids. There are balanced druids, feral druids, and restoration druids, depending on if you want to be an offensive caster or more of a melee class, or you want to be a healer. So in the balance thing, you can see there's the one wrath spell which I have. I haven't learned any feral stuff yet because I don't pick up the first of that until level 8. And restoration, I pick up my first healing spell at level 3. Now down here, you can see we have the spellbook tab and we have the professions tab. On the professions tab, you have 2 primary professions that you can take. You can take any 2, and we will explain, we'll discuss those in another segment later on. There are also 4 what are referred to as everyman skills: first aid, cooking, fishing, and archaeology. Archaeology is currently not available as of the time this was recorded. Once Cataclysm comes out on December 7th, then it will become available. First aid, you learn to take scraps of cloth and make bandages, which may very well save your butt at some point, so I highly encourage people to take them. Cooking, you learn to make different kinds of food that can give you different buffs and bonuses, and some that are just downright funny sometimes. And fishing, I personally enjoy fishing. Even here in WoW, it's actually kind of fun. Plus, fishing and cooking go directly together, so it works out very well. So we'll go ahead and close the spellbook. Now these next 2, your talents and your achievements, you can see in the tooltips over at the side that they're both locked basically until level 10. That's when they become available. Talents are when you learn to specialize in what particular type of class you want to be. For example, that's when I would choose whether I wanted to be a balanced druid, a feral druid, or a restoration druid. Or you wanted to learn to be a frost mage or a fire mage or an arcane mage, whatever. That's usually when they activate, is around level 10. Your achievements are just kind of awards you get for doing various things like exploring an entire zone. You can for fishing up a certain number of fish, making all these different kinds of recipes, all kinds of stuff. There's achievements for all kinds of things. Your quest log, as you talk to more and more quest givers, your quest log will slowly fill up, and each quest that you have selected, you'll see the details on this side. You can also abandon them if you don't want to do them, share them with party members if you're linked up with any party members, and when you click on track, it'll either appear or disappear depending on which one it is right there. Now, once you join a guild, you'll be able to access this panel, which will give you your various guild options that you can do. If you're on a PvP server, or once you hit level 10, you will gain the ability to go into battlegrounds, and that's where you track your honor points that you've earned there. The dungeon finder, when you hit level 15, will allow you because you can either go in solo or you can go in with a group of friends to go into random dungeons based on whatever your level is. As you get higher and higher in levels, more and more difficult dungeons become available to you. Then there's the game menu, which you can get by either clicking this button or hitting escape, and that's where a lot of the options that I'm going to be showing you are located. And finally, we have the help request, which I would encourage you to use very, very sparingly. GMs tend to be very, very busy because there are a lot of people throwing in a lot of help requests all the time. If you're just having trouble with a quest because it's too difficult and you're too low of a level to be doing it, don't bother a game master with that. That is an incredibly frivolous thing to do. If you are stuck, like you've fallen through the hillside and you're falling, through empty space, or you're stuck in a hole and you can't get out, or somebody's harassing you or something, those are the kinds of things that you go to the GMs with. Now right here we have a blank space, which once you find a key, this will become your key ring, and any keys you happen to get will all be stored there. This is your backpack, which is the only thing that you start with, really, and it's a 16 slot bag, one of which is taken up by your Hearthstone, and it shows here that we have no money. As you acquire more bags, they will slowly fill in these empty slots, and once you get bigger bags, you can replace the smaller ones, and believe me, you will want to do that very quickly because you run out of bag space very fast. Now this little empty bar here, made up of little rectangles, that is your XP bar. As you continue to do more kills and more quests, that will slowly, or quickly possibly, fill up with a big blue bar, and once it reaches the end over here, you'll get this beautiful golden double helix explosion around you, indicating that you have now reached the next level. And that's pretty much how all of that stuff down there works. Up here we have the mini-map, which has a list of where you are. You can either click on this or hit M to open your world map. And as you explore, this various parts will unlock and reveal. You have a calendar in which you can see what various events are coming up or have just passed. You can also create events, but we'll discuss that later. You have a logo which indicates whether or not you have mail. These two will magnify or demagnify your mini-maps so that you can figure out how much level of detail you want in there. This will open up either a stopwatch, or you can set an alarm just in case you're the kind of person who winds up staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning and oversleeps and doesn't manage to get to go to work on time the next day. Yeah, right, like this feature's ever going to get used. Then we've got voice chat. If you're, using voice chat when you're either in parties, raids, or battlegrounds, or sometimes people in their guilds want to be able to use them. And then this indicates what things you're tracking. You see up here there's this little book logo, which indicates that's my druid trainer, because those are what I'm tracking right now as class trainers. If I uncheck this, you'll see that little book disappears, and then I can put it in. You can select any of these and you'll be able to track them at will. Now over here we have your character logo, or your portrait, and if you select it, you see that you are now your own target. Now you see here how it's got a blue nameplate. That indicates that the character that's selected, in this case me, is a player character. It's actually a human person. If you were to select, for example, this guy, Growl Hawkwind, you see he's got this green nameplate, which means that it's a computer-driven character, not a real person. You can also right-click and get a bunch of different options that you can change. Finally, down here you have your chat box. Now, the general tab is, various people talking. There's nobody around right now, but I could, for example, say hello, and you will see him say hello. On the combat log section, you can see where, if I, for example, cast Wrath right now, I don't have anybody targeted, so the thing failed. And if I had him targeted, it would fail as well because he's an invalid target. I would have to go out there and find a mob or monster object in order to attack it. Now, over here, I wanted to show you these options. Most of this, I'm not even going to get into how to adjust these things because it's very specific to the individual system. Now this, however, I usually adjust this because it changes the size of these elements, like this big bar down here in this big map. If you adjust this, it'll either make them larger or smaller depending on how big you want them to be. I like to make them very, very small because that way they don't take up as much screen space. You click on interface. Almost all of this you can leave alone. However, I would highly encourage you to select action bars and click bottom left, bottom right, right bar, and right 2. This is now action bar 1. This is action bar 3, action bar 4, 5, and 6. Now you just have to use this. You use like shift 1, shift 2 to alternate back and forth between those two action bars. That's a much faster way of getting around it. Now this section, if you click on this, this brings up the various tutorials and whatnot. And once you're comfortable enough with the game, you can uncheck that under the help section, and this will go away. Well, that pretty much does it for this section of the thing. When you come back for segment 3, we will be talking about how to actually interact with things like quest givers and trainers and vendors, and we'll cover all of that in the next segment. Hope to see you guys there.